Hollywood worships beauty, wit, and genius. But what if I told you that some of its most legendary icons were branded as fools, nitwits, or downright too dumb to matter? That's right, beneath the glitz, a secret club of Golden Age stars were mocked, dismissed, and underestimated, only to turn the joke around and become the ultimate legends. Ever wonder who the industry ridiculed and who got the last laugh? Let's rip open the case files of old Hollywood and see which dummies rewrote the rules forever. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was just a lovable, bumbling tramp. Baggy pants, a bowler hat, and the vacant stare of a man lost in his own world. But behind that iconic mustache was a brain sharper than any studio exec dared imagine. The joke? Industry insiders thought Chaplin was naturally clownish, barely more than a living cartoon. What they missed, he directed, wrote, produced, edited, and even composed the music for his films, while inventing visual comedy that modern filmmakers still try to rip off. A single 30-second Chaplin scene might take him hundreds of takes, obsessively refining every movement for maximum impact. He could out-debate producers on contract law, out-edit his own editors, and out-negotiate moguls twice his age. Chaplin co-founded United Artists, smashing the studio system's monopoly and handing creative power to the talent, while he played the little man who could barely tie his shoes. And let's not forget, his films tackled everything from poverty to fascism, long before Hollywood found its conscience. Chaplin was no fool. He was a one-man film school. The world laughed at his tramp, but he was busy laughing all the way to the bank and into cinema history. Marilyn Monroe. For decades, Marilyn Monroe was the punchline, the ultimate dumb blonde, whose breathy voice and fluttering lashes launched 1,000 jokes. Hollywood pigeonholed her as a wide-eyed naif who couldn't string together a serious thought. But here's the plot twist. Monroe reportedly had an IQ of 168, higher than most of the directors, screenwriters, and studio heads who patronized her. She devoured the classics, Joyce, Dostoevsky, Freud, annotating her personal library of over 400 books, each page marked up with her notes and insights. She studied acting with Lee Strasberg, refusing to be a puppet, and stunned her managers with legal precision when she founded Marilyn Monroe Productions, one of the first female-owned production companies in Hollywood. While Fox executives gossiped about her dizzy spells, Monroe was renegotiating her contract, walking out when they wouldn't play fair, and returning as the most powerful woman on the lot. Even her iconic, dumb blonde persona was a business strategy. She played it up, knowing that Hollywood would pay more for a beautiful fool than a brilliant woman. Monroe's story is the ultimate revenge on those who underestimated her, proving that sometimes the dumbest woman in the room is just the best at hiding her cards. Judy Holiday. Judy Holiday won an Oscar for playing Billy Dawn, the adorable airhead in Born Yesterday, and audiences just assumed the persona was real. Gossip columnists called her a real-life ditz, and even co-stars treated her like a walking punchline. But in reality, Holiday was packing an IQ that could fry most people's brains, reportedly 172, with a Mensa membership card to prove it. Her talent for languages, memory, and music was off the charts. She could memorize entire scripts in one go, switch between French and Italian mid-conversation, and debate philosophy between takes. When the House Un-American Activities Committee tried to interrogate her during Hollywood's Blacklist witch hunt, Holiday turned the tables, playing up her dumb blonde act so thoroughly that the committee dropped her case, convinced she was harmless. That's what you call weaponized stupidity. Offstage, Holiday wrote music, poetry, and was an intellectual confidant to some of the era's top minds. The woman who played the dumbest girl in the room was often the smartest, and she used every ounce of it to outwit a system designed to break her. Think she was dumb? Guess again. Hedi Lamar. When MGM called Hedi Lamar the most beautiful woman in the world, they meant it as a compliment and an insult. To the studios, she was eye candy, hired to smolder in soft focus and sell tickets with a glance. Critics said she was too pretty to be clever. But while producers obsessed over her face, Lamar was busy inventing technology that would eventually power Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. During W12, she co-created a frequency-hopping system with composer George Antheil to prevent enemy torpedoes from being jammed. The Navy ignored her patent, convinced an actress couldn't possibly have a technical mind. Decades later, her breakthrough was recognized as the bedrock of modern communications. Lamar never saw a dime, but she did earn posthumous scientific awards and, finally, some overdue respect. Hollywood never forgave her for being smart and beautiful. Lamar's own words said it best. Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid. If only the industry had known she was secretly making the future possible between takes. Gracie Allen. To the world, Gracie Allen was comedy's reigning ditz, the scatterbrained half of Burns and Allen, whose mangled logic and wild non-sequiturs brought audiences to tears. Radio fans assumed she was genuinely clueless, a woman who'd get lost in a revolving door. But the real Gracie was a comedic surgeon, sharp, strategic, and always 3 steps ahead. She wrote much of the duo's legendary material herself, perfecting a style of silly logic that required actual brilliance to execute. Gracie understood exactly how to play the audience. She even orchestrated a fake presidential campaign in 1940, using the surprise party to drive their ratings through the roof and turn political farce into a marketing masterstroke. In an era when women were sidelined, she controlled the finances, negotiated contracts, and crafted every punchline. George Burns, her famous partner, later admitted, "I played the smart guy, but she was the genius." Allen's career proves that you can play dumb on stage and still run the show behind the curtain. The joke, as always, was on Hollywood. Lou Costello, forever immortalized as the lovable, clueless half of Abbott and Costello, seemed like a grown man trapped in a schoolboy's confusion. His "Hey Abbott" catchphrase became code for simple-mindedness, and even his co-stars treated him like the village idiot. But behind that slapstick exterior was a brain sharper than a bookie's pencil. Costello was a bona fide math prodigy. Offstage, he'd scan contracts and immediately spot the hidden clauses, percentages, and fine print that slipped by seasoned lawyers. Insiders say he could predict a box office haul down to the nickel, just from seeing ticket sales on opening night. He understood probability so well that he'd clean out anyone foolish enough to play cards with him backstage. It didn't end there. Costello's sense of comedic timing wasn't just natural, it was mathematically engineered. He'd measure every pause, every beat, like a living stopwatch, ensuring each gag landed perfectly. And when television came along, he was one of the first stars to see the future of syndication, securing residuals and royalties while others let studios pocket the windfall. The lovable goofball who could barely keep a straight face was secretly the numbers man rewriting comedy's bottom line. Who's on first? If you asked the accountants, it was always Costello. Judy Garland. Judy Garland is forever remembered as the emotionally fragile star, the girl over the rainbow who never quite grew up. Hollywood painted her as unstable, childish, and in need of constant rescue, while executives and press alike whispered that she was too naive to survive. But off-camera, Garland was as tough as they come, and twice as savvy. When MGM cut her loose, assuming her career was done, Garland plotted a comeback so bold it rewrote the playbook. She targeted prestigious concert halls, venues reserved for the world's most serious musicians, and sold them out night after night. Garland wasn't just singing, she was producing, marketing, and managing her own tours, creating a blueprint that pop stars still follow. She launched her own television series under her production company, demanded creative control, and was one of the first stars to demand quality in live recordings and media. The helpless victim was actually a boardroom boss, leveraging her name and talent with a sharp eye for intellectual property rights. Judy Garland may have played the damsel, but in real life she was her own knight, building a business empire and outlasting every suit who said she'd never make it without them. Don't call her a casualty, call her a pioneer. Lucille Ball. Lucy Ricardo, the queen of sitcom chaos, was the textbook scatterbrain. America loved to watch her botch recipes, muddle through harebrained schemes, and turn every domestic chore into a disaster. For decades, audiences confused Lucille Ball with her TV alter ego, assuming the real woman was just as lost in the laundry. They couldn't have been more wrong. Ball was a ferocious business strategist and a television visionary. Alongside Desi Arnaz, she founded Desilu Productions, but it was Lucy who demanded the show be filmed on 35mm, ensuring high-quality reruns and massive long-term profits. When network execs balked, she outnegotiated every single one, and later became the first woman to run a major studio after buying out Desi's share. Desilu produced Star Trek and Mission Impossible, shows that revolutionized television, all because Lucy ignored the dumb housewife label and bet on her instincts. Behind the goofy face and pratfalls was a risk-taker and leader who saw around corners. Lucille Ball proved that dumb is sometimes just a disguise, and while everyone else was laughing at her, she was building an empire that would outlive them all. Oliver Hardy. Oliver Hardy, the bigger half of Laurel and Hardy, spent a lifetime playing the hapless, clueless oaf, forever exasperated, always a step behind, and never quite in control. Audiences delighted in his bumbling routines and assumed he was a natural-born simpleton. The truth? Hardy was a hidden polymath. Raised by a music teacher, Hardy was classically trained, composing complex works in private and sometimes performing under pseudonyms so his reputation as a fool wouldn't be tarnished. While Stan Laurel masterminded the scripts, Hardy was the logistics genius, handling international contracts and personally overseeing the duo's foreign language dubs thanks to his fluency in multiple languages. On set, directors were stunned when Hardy would break out original piano pieces, weaving intricate harmonies that sounded nothing like the slapstick chaos on screen. He was also deeply involved in the business, protecting the duo's international interests and making shrewd production decisions that kept them relevant long after the silent era. The fat clown image was a shield, one that let Hardy operate as a creative and business powerhouse. The next time you watch him slip on a banana peel, remember, this was a man who orchestrated success like a maestro. Marie Wilson. Marie Wilson was Hollywood's favorite ditz, immortalized as Irma Peterson on My Friend Irma, a woman so endearingly clueless, fans genuinely thought she might get lost on her own studio lot. Studio press agents played up her innocence, and even network execs underestimated her. But Wilson was playing chess while everyone else was stuck on tic-tac-toe. Wilson wasn't just a performer, she was a business pioneer. She negotiated for a cut of the show's lucrative merchandising, unheard of for actresses in the 1940s. When the series jumped from radio to film and TV, she made sure her name and her profits followed. Her dumb blonde act was so convincing that even seasoned dealmakers let their guard down, thinking she'd sign anything. Instead, Wilson reviewed every contract herself and routinely hired top legal talent to outflank the studios. Her creative instincts were just as sharp. Wilson collaborated closely with writers to perfect Irma's blend of malapropisms and heart, ensuring the character stayed lovable and profitable across every medium. Off-screen, she invested in real estate, built up a financial safety net, and became one of the most secure stars of her era. Marie Wilson's big act, letting everyone believe she was the dumbest person in the room, right up until she cashed the smartest checks in town. Joe E. Brown. To the world, Joe E. Brown was the guy with the comically oversized mouth, a human cartoon specializing in country bumpkin goofballs. His catchphrase, "Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle," seemed tailor-made for audiences to laugh at, not with. Yet behind that gaping grin was one of the sharpest mathematical minds ever to hit Hollywood. Brown dropped out of school as a kid to join the circus, but he could multiply four-digit numbers in his head and spot financial trends at a glance. During the 1929 stock market crash, when most stars lost everything, Brown didn't just survive, he thrived. He created his own system for predicting market moves, and his friends quietly asked him for investment advice while the professionals panicked. On set, he'd spot payroll errors faster than the accountants, and his mental math once resolved a days-long dispute in minutes on Some Like It Hot. Brown even lent his talent to the military, helping develop logistical systems for moving troops during World War II, a contribution so impactful that some logistics firms later hired him as a consultant. The man who made a living playing lovable fools could have outwitted the suits on Wall Street, and often did. Joe E. Brown is proof that sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one everyone else is busy laughing at. Betty Greybel. Betty Greybel was sold to America as the girl with the million-dollar legs, a sunny, uncomplicated starlet who smiled for the camera and didn't make waves. Fan magazines downplayed any ambition, branding her as just another pretty face in a sea of starlets. But behind the scenes, Greybel was a tactical mastermind. She noticed that her films consistently outperformed others at the box office and used that knowledge to renegotiate her contracts. Instead of churning out endless movies for a quick paycheck, Greybel limited her output to create anticipation and keep her asking price sky high. She became one of the highest-paid women in the country, even out-earning some studio bosses. Greybel demanded creative control, down to the lighting that best showcased her image. While other actresses floundered as they aged out of their ingenue roles, she built a brand that endured, cashing in on endorsements and product tie-ins. By the time she retired, Greybel's fortune was the envy of serious actors who once dismissed her. Betty Greybel wasn't just a pretty pair of legs. She was a shrewd negotiator and brand builder who outmaneuvered the very machine that tried to package her as dumb. Red Buttons. Red Buttons built his fame playing the oddball, the high-pitched voice, the clown who always seemed just a beat behind reality. With catchphrases like "strange things are happening," he became a go-to for comic relief, and many thought that's all there was to him. Offstage, Buttons was a one-man university. He transformed his dressing rooms into libraries, stacked with everything from ancient Greek philosophy to cultural theory. On film sets, while others took naps, Buttons was teaching himself classical Greek to read Homer in the original or holding impromptu seminars on Zen Buddhism. His intellect was so formidable that even religious scholars sometimes came to him for advice on Talmudic passages. During the filming of Sayonara, he stunned the Japanese crew with his fluency and depth of understanding of their culture. Red Buttons played the fool in front of the camera, but lived as a philosopher, scholar, and seeker of knowledge. "I play a simpleton to pay the bills," he once quipped. "I read Aristotle to feed my soul." If you thought Red Buttons was just another comic, think again. He was the definition of not judging a book, especially when he was busy reading all of them. Martha Raye. Martha Raye's giant smile and brash physical comedy made her a staple of every zany variety show and movie. Audiences figured she was simply a loud, simple comedian, too rowdy to be taken seriously. What nobody realized was that Raye was also a decorated war nurse and a military tactician whose brains literally saved lives. Trained as a nurse before showbiz, she volunteered for some of the most dangerous assignments during WFI, Korea, and Vietnam, working alongside special forces and earning the nickname Colonel Maggie. Her medical skills were matched only by her battlefield instincts. She could read a tactical map or spot weaknesses in base security faster than most junior officers. General William Westmoreland himself praised her military insight, and her recommendations for repositioning guard posts once helped repel an enemy attack. When she died, she was buried with full military honors, the only female civilian so recognized in Special Forces history. Martha Raye's mouth made her famous, but her brains and her guts made her legendary. If Hollywood thought she was just a clown, the military knew she was the real deal. Shmp Howard. Among the Three Stooges, Shmp Howard was the odd one out. The weirdest hair, the silliest faces, and a persona so goofy he seemed like the group's punching bag. To audiences, He was the ugly stooge, a man whose very existence seemed like a joke. But off camera, Shmp was the brains of the operation. While his colleagues spent their paychecks as fast as they earned them, Shmp was quietly investing in stocks and real estate. He developed his own system for analyzing market volatility and even bought up prime Beverly Hills land before it skyrocketed in value. During the 1929 crash, he stayed calm, buying up assets that would make him a multi-millionaire in today's dollars. Actors would consult Shmp for financial advice, and his portfolio routinely outperformed the pros. Even in business meetings, he'd play the fool, letting studio execs underestimate him, then swooping in with deals that left him on top. Shmp Howard may have taken pies to the face for a living, but he took everyone else to the cleaners when it came to money. The next time someone tells you slapstick is for dummies, tell them about Shmp. Carmen Miranda. With her mountain of fruit hats and rapid-fire accented English, Carmen Miranda became Hollywood's punchline for exotic stupidity. One critic even compared her talent to a banana. She was supposed to be fun, flashy, and a little clueless. But the real Miranda was a strategic powerhouse, both on stage and at the negotiating table. Born in Portugal but billed as Brazil's biggest export, Miranda built her entire persona as a calculated branding move. That fruit hat? She designed it to stick in American memory and to sell merchandise by the boatload. Miranda played dumb to get what she wanted, but in meetings, she'd drop the accent, switch to fluent English, and negotiate circles around her handlers. Fox tried to lowball her, so she walked, launched her own Broadway show, and made $4 million in a single year, forcing the studio to beg for her return. She insisted on script approval, profit shares, and merchandising rights before it was even cool. By 1945, she was the highest-paid woman in America, out-earning the president. The silly Samba Queen was the one outsmarting Hollywood's sharpest sharks. If you thought Carmen Miranda was just a dancing joke, think again. She was the original boss lady, shaking the industry down for everything it was worth. Peter Lorre. Hollywood's nervous numbskull was a literary savant. Peter Lorre built his career playing jittery, anxious weirdos, the bug-eyed man everyone assumed was just as peculiar off-screen as on. Hollywood gossip painted him as half-mad and half-lost, his accent the butt of 1,000 jokes. But in reality, Lorre was fluent in 8 languages, could recite epic poetry from memory, and spent his pre-Hollywood years working with Sigmund Freud on early psychoanalytic research. His understanding of psychology and literature was so deep, he corresponded with intellectual giants like Thomas Mann. During W. Fogg, he quietly assisted Allied intelligence, using his linguistic skills to translate critical documents and pinpoint German dialects for military intelligence. He was so much more than a nervous little man. In Europe, his unproduced plays were hailed as high art, and his circle included top thinkers and artists. Laura once laughed, "They'd be terrified to know I've read more Goethe than their professors." Hollywood gave him caricature roles, but the real Lorre was a literary and psychological heavyweight hiding in plain sight. If you ever doubted the oddball could be the smartest guy in the room, Peter Lorre is all the proof you need. Marian Davies. History tried to relegate Marian Davies to just the mistress, the pretty plaything propped up by newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst. The movie Citizen Kane immortalized her as a talentless hack, famous only because a rich man said so. Reality couldn't be more different. Davies was a comic actress with razor-sharp timing, a master of physical gags who outperformed some of the greats. But more than that, she was a financial force. While everyone credited Hearst for her lifestyle, Davies quietly built her own fortune, investing in real estate, blue-chip stocks, and diverse business ventures. During the Great Depression, when Hearst's empire teetered on collapse, it was Davies who bailed him out, selling jewelry and assets to lend him millions, all while her own portfolio stayed rock solid. Friends like writer Anita Loos raved about her wit and brains. She once quipped to a director, "I would have been a star without William, just in different ways." Marian Davies wasn't anyone's pawn. She was a player, outlasting the men who tried to write her story. The dumb mistress narrative? That's just Hollywood's wishful thinking. Mae West. Mae West's entire act was based on being too much, too loud, too bawdy, too blonde, and supposedly too dumb to care. Audiences loved her winks and one-liners, but figured there was nothing going on upstairs. The joke's on them. Mae West wrote every line she delivered, directed her own stage shows, and was one of Hollywood's most ruthless businesswomen. She refused to let any studio own her work, famously walking away from contracts and producing her own material when no one else would. Censors, critics, and rivals tried to silence her, but West always had the last laugh. Her shows made millions, and her films set box office records. She used her dumb blonde persona like a shield, distracting the men in charge while she orchestrated deals, rewrote scripts, and packed theaters coast to coast. West didn't just break the rules, she wrote new ones and dared Hollywood to keep up. If you ever wondered who taught the dumb act to be the smartest move in the room, Mae West's name is stamped on the playbook. Jean Harlo. Jean Harlo, the original blonde bombshell, was pigeonholed by studios as a giggling airhead, the sort of woman who'd be stumped by her own reflection. She leaned into the image. On screen, she was the ultimate ditz, her lines peppered with malapropisms and double entendres. But off-screen, Harlo was in total control. She routinely rewrote her dialogue, improved scenes with her wit, and supported fellow actresses behind the scenes. Harlo's contracts were airtight. She hired top agents, negotiated her own deals, and was fiercely protective of her brand. When MGM tried to sideline her, she pushed back and scored top billing and pay. She also broke the mold by being openly kind and supportive in a cutthroat industry, setting up unofficial mentorships for younger actresses and fighting for better roles for women across the board. Harlo's combination of business sense and generosity made her a favorite among the crew. Everyone knew she was nobody's fool. The studios tried to sell Jean Harlo as the ultimate dumb blonde, but she was too smart to let anyone else write her story. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis was known as Hollywood's wildest man-child, the spastic, rubber-faced comedian whose physical antics could make grown men cry with laughter. Critics dismissed him as juvenile and mindless, even as his box office numbers soared. But under the surface, Lewis was a technical innovator, a director, and a business mastermind who changed filmmaking forever. He invented the video assist system, which lets directors instantly review takes on set, a technology still used today. Lewis wrote, directed, and edited his own films, often introducing new camera techniques or production methods that became industry standards. Offstage, he was a demanding perfectionist, known for prepping scripts, planning shots, and running productions with military precision. He also masterminded some of the biggest telethons in TV history, raising billions for charity and showing that a clown could have the biggest heart and the sharpest mind. Lewis was always 3 steps ahead, redefining what a comedian and a movie star could be. The next time you see someone mocked as just a goof, remember Jerry Lewis. Sometimes the man acting like a kid is actually the grown-up running the show. So there you have it, 21 Hollywood legends who wore the label "too dumb" like a disguise and turned it into a secret weapon. These so-called fools outsmarted the industry, rewrote the rules, and left their critics in the dust. Which one surprised you most? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you love seeing the truth behind the legends, hit that like and subscribe. Because in Hollywood and in life, the smartest move might just be playing the fool.